On today's show, LeBron James becomes the first player in NBA history to break 40,000 points scored. How long will his record last? What does it say about his career? And the latest injury updates on Lakers' Gabe, Vincent, and Jared Vanderbilt. It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins, and all you have to do is wager $5. It's so easy. Bet on all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. Right now, you can take a look at the outright betting favorites for the NBA title this season. The Boston Celtics, far and away the favorites at plus 210. Right behind them, the Denver Nuggets, plus 420 to repeat. Just behind the Nuggets, LA Clippers, plus 500. The Milwaukee Bucks at plus 700. And then in distant fifth place, the Phoenix Suns, plus 1,800. So for all that action and so much more, just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Lakers, Andy Kamenetzky. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Lakers. And Andy, about a year ago, LeBron James eclipsed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to become the NBA all-time scoring leader. And over the weekend, he becomes the first player to break 40,000 career points. He's been a Laker for about 8,000 or so of those points, which is kind of crazy to say out loud in a sentence. I was writing into my notes and I was like, wow, it's kind of crazy how time flies like that. What do you think about when you consider the entire body of work of his that goes in, that has gone into, getting to that marker that's never been achieved before, the 40,000 career points?
I mean, the thing that always jumps out at me most, as we've been watching LeBron pass MJ, pass Kobe, pass Malone, then pass Kareem, is that he's obviously a great scorer, but he's not a score first guy. Like, he's not wired to score as his first instinct. He is wired to set up other guys to score, which again, doesn't take away from the fact that he is an incredibly talented scorer. But it makes me just think about, like, okay, what would his point totals be if he had been wired more like Kobe or Jordan or Kevin Durant, someone like that is clearly a score first type player. Guys who, to be clear, all those guys I named can do a whole bunch of other stuff as well, but they are wired first to score. Think what LeBron's totals would have been like with this type of longevity and this type of excellence if he had actually been on the court looking to score.
It's crazy because when you bring up that point, right, it kind of, and not to get into the whole, GOAT debate and stuff, we don't have to do that here, but it does lend some credence, right, to the idea
Mercifully,
of,
we don't.
Right, but it does lend something to the idea of, LeBron versus MJ. You get into the, greatest peak scoring, whatever, all that with MJ, but then LeBron may be arguably greatest all-around basketball player of all time. And then you look at what he's still been able to achieve despite the fact that he's wired as more so that point forward, kind of pass first, get his teammates involved, that kind of mentality throughout the entirety of his career, except for maybe that little bit of a stint in Miami where he really did take over and was the primary focal point scoring for a few years there.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. My brother put out a tweet at Cam Brothers. If you took LeBron's point totals and chopped them in half, he'd still be around 55 or so on the all-time scoring list if he just arbitrarily wiped out half of his scoring. Like, that's how incredible he's been. He would still be like among, if you're in the top 50 to 60 scorers in NBA history, you've had a hell of a career as a scorer. Like, that is really difficult to do. He can spot you half of his career and get there.
And he's had two all-time great careers within one, essentially, when you look at it from that perspective. Now, look, it took nearly 40 years for somebody to beat Kareem's all-time scoring record, for somebody to finally eclipse that number. how long do you think LeBron's record stay? And here's the thing, right? LeBron's still going is the crazy part. He's not done. It doesn't look like he's going to be done necessarily anytime soon. He's jokingly hinted at the retiring and all that, but let's be honest, it's not. It doesn't feel like it's happening at least anytime soon. How long does his record stand, or will it ever be broken in your mind?
I mean, never say never, because there's that famous quote from Chick Hearn, the legendary Lakers broadcaster, when Kareem set the all-time record. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but referred to it as a milestone that will never be broken. And we've gone on to now see it broken. It will be shattered by the time LeBron is finally finished. It's going to be difficult, though, to top him, because the amount of years you have to put in as a high-end scorer and the ability to largely stay on the court. Like, LeBron has been more injury prone as a Laker, but he still has not been injury prone in LA. And then in the meantime, the dude was basically indestructible with Miami and both stints in Cleveland. Like, if you can't have that type of longevity with health and the scoring, it's going to be really difficult. I mean, he may end up playing about 23 seasons. You think about guys like Vince Carter, or I don't know, Dirk Nowitzki, Tim Duncan,
Shaq,
like the guys who hit
Shaq
the 20s
forever and then tapered off.
But I was going to say they weren't primary, 20-point a game type scorers. There is no template for what LeBron is doing. So, could somebody like, say, Luka, who's gotten off to an incredible head start, or who knows what type of scorer Victor Wembanyama might become like? Sure, it is possible, but the odds are staggeringly stacked against anybody looking to do this.
And obviously on the way to this, incredible mark, the 40,000, LeBron had some really impressive performances against the Clippers, had the 19-point fourth quarter, performance there. Then he also had the 31 against the Wizards in the OT game. When you see the way that LeBron is still at his age, at this stage in his career, still able to take over and dominate a game, specifically like he did against the Clippers, right? Which that was just a remarkable performance there in the fourth quarter.
That was the biggest fourth quarter comeback in LeBron's career. He had never erased a 21-point fourth quarter deficit. And may I remind you again, LeBron's now in his 21st season. So that is a lot of games for that to have never happened before, which again, just speaks to the guy has basically accomplished everything you could possibly do.
It really is unprecedented what we're witnessing and what we continue to witness from him on a nightly basis. And I urge those to, who have had the ability to watch LeBron, right? I've been watching him for, close to 2 decades now. Cherish every moment of it, right? Because once he's gone, the game will be worse for it whenever LeBron eventually does ultimately retire. But when you do see those moments from LeBron, when you do see him be able to take over a game like he did against the Clippers, is that what should give Lakers fans hope, even though, they're kind of flirting with the back end of kind of the play-in tournament race, and or even better, potentially strike fear into the hearts of opposing teams, right? Of just, you don't want to be the team that has to deal with the Lakers, because you don't want to have to be the team that deals with LeBron in an elimination game scenario or even a 7-game series.
Yeah, I can promise you there's no team in the league, like even Denver, who I think has been established right now as the Lakers' daddy. I mean, they've beaten the Lakers 8 straight games, and Denver is they're better than the Lakers. They may be better than anybody in the West. They may be better than anybody in the league, but they're clearly better than the Lakers. But I doubt they want to see LeBron and Anthony Davis in the playoffs. Like, you will never want to see LeBron as long as he's on the court. Like, it reminds me a bit of, I covered the last 3 years of Kobe's career post Achilles, and Kobe was never the same player after that. He had his moments, and, he had the finale for the ages, but most of those 3 seasons, Kobe was a shell of himself compared to what he had been before he tore that Achilles. But you could see him still strike fear in the hearts of defenders. Like, defenders and defenses would treat Kobe with the type of reverence and attention and fear that honestly at that stage of his career wasn't even merited But because he's Kobe, you can't wrap your head around not treating him like one of the deadliest scorers to ever play. And I think in a lot of ways, that's going to be LeBron, who, to be clear, is still playing at a high level. But I don't care if LeBron's 50. If he is, and if he's on a team that's kind of mediocre beyond him, you will not want to ever see that guy in a game with stakes attached as long as he's still producing. You just won't. It's ingrained in your head as if you're anybody who's been in the league.
Last thing for you here, Andy. What's the latest update on Gabe Vincent and Jared Vanderbilt? Gabe Vincent obviously missing basically the entire season. So is there any hope to get him healthy on court activities and get him going before, a potential postseason run? And then obviously for Jared Vanderbilt, what's the latest on him?
I mean, the latest update has been essentially there is no update. They're both just rehabbing. There's been nothing definitive. I got to be honest, unless Gabe Vincent gets back pretty soon, I think trying to reintegrate him into the rotation could be more difficult than it's actually worth, just because he's barely played with this team. Like, he's only played 5 games this year. In those 5 games, he was okay. He looked like a guy learning everybody new. I think it's going to be difficult to try to put him back into that. Although if some guys off the bench don't start playing better, it might prompt Darvin Ham to give that a try, even if it's not practical. Vanderbilt, again, his return is still very TBD. I don't even know if it is in-house considered something that is more likely to happen than not. But I do think if Vanderbilt is able to play, they will work to try to get him back on the court, because he is really, really missed. It's, I think, actually the most under-recognized piece of the Lakers not performing up to expectations this season. Jared Vanderbilt's missed probably somewhere between half to 2/3 of the season. He's really, really important to what this team does. Like, he is in his own right the most singular guy on this team, or among the most singular guys, because there really aren't many other guys on this team who can do all the different things that he does, much less as the same player. Like, they miss his rebounding, they miss his point of attack defense, they miss his overall energy and the infectiousness of it. He misses the optionality that you give Darvin Ham in terms of deploying other guys defensively. Like, he is desperately missed on this team.
Which team will ultimately draw the honor of dealing with LeBron James in the NBA play-in tournament? And can the Lakers ultimately get healthy before the postseason arrives? You're gonna have us covered for all of that and so much more over at Locked On Lakers. Andy, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Anytime, man.